Namaste. As part of collected works of Sri Aurobindo, we take up today volume 32. And this volume is a very, very special volume. It occupies a very special place in the entire writings of Sri Aurobindo. And there is a reason for it. If we see Sri Aurobindo's writings, we can categorize them chronologically and also in a certain sense of the importance in 3 or 4 distinct stages. The first is before his coming to Pondicherry, which are writings mainly in Bande Mataram, Karmi Yogi, Yugantar, which is not available now, and Dharma, the Bengali writings, and some others in Indu Prakash, etc. And they are mainly concerned with India as Bharat, not India as India. So that is one part where we see the revival and renaissance of India for the good of the world. And there are also in Bangla writings on Vedas, Upanishads, the Gita, which are par excellence. Then comes the second set of writing, which are after coming to Pondicherry, where we see from 1910 to 1920, where we see primarily the 3 writings which are before 1914, and then the Arya writings, which are largely the main works of Sri Aurobindo, and most of the readers who are not much familiar with Sri Aurobindo, they usually think of these works when they are wanting to read something from Sri Aurobindo. So often I have heard people who are wanting to read Sri Aurobindo and they pick up the Life Divine or the Synthesis of Yoga. Nowadays people are also picking up Savitri, but that's a different genre entirely. So these are the second set of writings. Then between 1921 to 1926, there is no writing as such, but there is a whole group of evening talks, which form a collection in itself, but they are not writing, so we leave them aside. And then from 1926, something happens in 1926, which we are all aware of. On 24th November 1926, it marks a day for 3 main events, though we speak only of one, and that is the descent of Shri Krishna in the physical of Sri Aurobindo. So this is much spoken of as Siddhi Day, because naturally the mother spoke of it like that, and the mother only passingly refers to the other events which are connected with it, because she is the mother and she likes to be in the background. So the event that were connected with it were that there was a Deva Srishti which had descended. All the gods were wanting to take a human form or come in close contact with human beings, like an overmind creation, and Sri Aurobindo did not want it. Because though it will create a great religion, the greatest of all world religions so far, but it will remain within the confines of the world religions. It will not be able to bring in a greater force from the future. And Sri Aurobindo did not want it. His purpose was to bring something from the unmanifest transcendent. And this is important to understand, because then we understand the significance of this book. Something which has never manifested yet. So that was completely new to Sri Aurobindo, whereas all the yogas were rotating within the world consciousness, the height of whatever within the realm of the world consciousness one could achieve, cosmic consciousness. So, but Sri Aurobindo was not satisfied with it, he wanted something greater, and therefore when Mother created this Deva Srishti, which was yet within the realm of the cosmic consciousness of the gods, creation of the gods, wonderful beings, but yet they are not completely freed from any kind of limitation. There is in the great gods a tendency to join their absolute infinite, but otherwise they move within their own circle. So Sri Aurobindo did not want it, and the mother erased it. So this was the second event which took place. And the third event, which is of the most important turning point in Sri Aurobindo's yoga, is the mother stepping into the forefront. So we know that Sri Aurobindo, when he was asked about the yoga, he said, before the mother's coming, I could help myself, but I could not help others. Because this yoga required tremendous tapasya. And Sri Aurobindo is the pioneer, the forerunner, he could do that tapasya. But how many are ready and able to do that tapasya? So the coming of the mother was meant to be the mediating bridge between that tapasya, which was an effort to bring the transcendent unmanifest, and the average human being, who even not only average, even the great yogis could never pierce beyond the veil of the cosmic consciousness. If at all they wanted to pierce, it was to plunge into the unknowable. But with the coming of the mother, it became possible to bridge that which Sri Aurobindo was wanting to bring down upon earth, something that had never manifested, the new creation, the supramental world, and the human race. So, when the mother agreed, now what happened between them, we don't know. But at some point, the mother accepted the burden and the charge out of divine love. And we know that story where Amrita asked Sri Aurobindo that she is a great yogi, and Sri Aurobindo said, yes, indeed a very great yogin. But she doesn't give meditation. And Sri Aurobindo said, yes, but one day, impelled by the divine love, she will take up this work, and that will be a great day. So Sri Aurobindo had recognized the mother much before the Siddhi day. We know that story. There is a letter in this book also confirming it. But mother had to agree because she was born free. At some point she agreed, and that point from 24th November 1926 marks the turning point in the history of integral yoga. Because from that time onwards, anybody who approached Sri Aurobindo had to come through the mother, which led to certain, what we may call human language, heartburns. Because Motilal Roy could not understand this. He had a close access. He even thought that perhaps maybe I am the next one to whom the Gaddi will go. And maybe some others, Barinda, his own brother. But he made a rule that everybody will come through the mother, because this is the original arrangement. It is a divine truth that there is the divine who is in his Sakshi Bhav, Ishvara, and there is the Shakti which goes into the world and does all that she has to do. So there had to be the same arrangement was once again installed in the ashram. So when that happened, all that was written from 1914 to 20, it remains valid, but it took a slightly different turn, but the different turn changed the entire approach. And that turn was first typified or revealed by Sri Aurobindo in the message which came on 21st February 1927. So 24th November 1926 became the official day, if one wants to call it, of the birth of the ashram. Of course, it was not like, okay, we are starting a Sri Aurobindo ashram, but it became organically so. And therefore, because mother was given the charge of the ashram, darshan days started after that. And the first darshan day that fell after 24th November was on 21st February 1927. And the message of Sri Aurobindo on that day becomes the first chapter of the book, The Mother. So now, The Mother consists of one small book, this big book, small book, which is like the Bij Mantra. If at all one wants to know all about Sri Aurobindo's yoga and the sadhana, how to do it, it is this one book. It is like a handbook to be carried, read, practiced, and implemented in life. It's a lifetime sadhana, and I not just believe, I can say that I know it, that even practicing one passage of it gives tremendous results. So but how this book was born, this is one of the books which is contained in Collected Works of Sri Aurobindo, volume 32. This little book has 6 chapters. The book contains many other aspects, but first about this book. The first part of the book is this little book, The Mother. And first chapter was as a message that became the first chapter of this book. This was the message given on 21st February 1927. Then this message was received by people, and this message was primarily, if we go back to it, there was a disciple in Gujarat, Motilal Mehta. So he had started asking some questions on the mother, and Sri Aurobindo was replying to him. So in all likelihood, it's not written exactly like that, but this message was given that, okay, comprehensively I am giving you something as the most important fundamental rule or way of the yoga here. And then there was another disciple, Poonam Chand Shah, also from Gujarat. And God bless them. I mean, they are blessed, and thanks to them. We had chapter 2, 3, 4, which was written in response to their queries in chapter 5. So he asked questions, and in response, Sri Aurobindo wrote letters to them. And they got incorporated in the book. And then finally, chapter 6 has an independent origin. Sri Aurobindo intended to write about the four aspects. And why he intended after 1926? Very simply, because when we look at Sri Aurobindo's evening talks, and a disciple asks, one of the last conversations, I think 1926, this conversation is either November, October, or around that period, that what is the, not the criteria, but what is the basic method before one can talk about the supramental world coming down. And Sri Aurobindo says the plane of the gods must be established. And he is asked, what is the plane of the gods? So he says, it's not something he wanted to reveal at that point of time. The four original gods, whom we know as Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh and Krishna. And they come from four aspects of the divine as Satchidananda. Sat or infinite existence is Brahma in its origin. But in our mind, he becomes Brahma as the instrument of creation. Vishnu, consciousness, Mahavishnu. But in the our mind, he becomes Vishnu. And then we have Shiva. In his original aspect, Param Shiva as the force becomes Shiva on the our mind plane. And Krishna, originally as the Anandamaya. And here he becomes Krishna, the avatar of the Dwapar. So we have these four great gods, and they are well known in Indian pantheon, in different traditions. And Sri Aurobindo spoke about the four great goddesses, which basically we can see around similar lines. So these four great goddesses have taken the charge of preparing humanity up till this point. Where do they take us? They take us to the gates of the supermind. And when all four of them have worked out individually their perfection in us, then it is ready to be supramentalized. The human consciousness becomes ready to be supramentalized. Otherwise, it's very difficult for the supermind to act. I mean, it can act, but it will smash. Nobody is ready. So Sri Aurobindo had written this letter immediately. All these were written in 1927. So in 1928, all the 6 letters came out as a single book, The Mother. And this book is, I think, 62 or 64 pages. Around that pages, yes, 64 pages. And it's a wonderful book to be always carried. If one has to carry one book. So yes, of course, Savitri, prayers and meditation. Otherwise, this is the book to be carried. Then there is another part of the book, apart from this 6 chapters. Okay, so there is part 2 of the book. This was part 1, which is the book, The Mother, available as a separate volume. But here in Collected Works of Sri Aurobindo, it is available comprehensively with letters on the Mother. So letters on the Mother is a number of letters which were written again after 1926, because people asked, who is the Mother? Suddenly the yoga had taken a very different turn. And people started asking, who is the Mother? Why she is here? And how can we relate with her? Because if you see 1914 to 1920 Arya writings, Sri Aurobindo speaks of the Divine Shakti. Now, Divine Shakti we are familiar with. So everybody thought, okay, Divine Shakti means inwardly you have to invoke the Divine Shakti. But Divine Shakti is not a plaything. I mean, if we are not ready, we can be shattered to pieces. Even greatest of yogins have found it difficult. And therefore, when the Mother came into existence, the book The Mother, and Sri Aurobindo said that she is the individual avatar who holds within herself the universal, not only the world Mother, but the transcendent, the Supreme Mother, all in one. So she is the Purna Avatar, if you may use so. The Mother herself says that complete, full incarnation of the Divine Shakti. That's what she is. So she, as an individual, taking a bodily form, held within herself the vaster to greater and vaster aspects of her own existence. So she is the avatar of the Supreme Mother, and therefore through her we could connect. Why it became easier? Because first, the divine assuming a physical body, it becomes easier for sense-bound human beings to interact. Otherwise, divine Shakti, as the mother says, people talk about divine Shakti, but most of the time, they end up with some vital Shakti which they pull and they have a breakdown. So she became the gate, the bridge. At the same time, by assuming a human body, it became a chance for the human body and through the body for the earth consciousness to be divinized because she could do it. So the importance of the mother, and therefore people asked all kinds of questions, which includes who is the mother, purpose of her embodiment, events in her life, the three aspects, the universal, transcendent, and the individual. Then the mother, the divine, and the lower nature, because there is a common conception that all is the divine. So similarly with the mother, they said everything is mother, including nature. So whatever I feel impelled is ultimately the mother. And Sri Aurobindo had to say, it is true that the mother is the original impelling power. But for yoga, we have to make a distinction between the lower prakriti and the para prakriti. The divine mother stands for the para prakriti. The movement in knowledge and not movement in ignorance. So he had to qualify all that. People asked Sri Aurobindo that what is the realization that the mother brings? Is it lesser, equal, or greater than Nirvikalpa Samadhi? And Sri Aurobindo answered that it is greater than Nirvikalpa Samadhi because in Nirvikalpa Samadhi there is no new creation. It is at some point you snap with the earth and enter into the transcendent. But here the Divine Mother is bringing the transcendent upon earth. So it's much greater. So people ask this question. They even ask questions like, well, the mother is inside, so I can find her inside. Why the outer mother? And Sri Aurobindo says that this habit of drawing distinction between the inner mother and the outer is the result of an adverse asuric maya, which tries to create a distinction. It's like those, Ram, that physical Ram is different. But it is one of the names of inner Ram. But see how Kabir explained that all four are different parts of one reality. एक राम दशरथ का बेटा, एक राम है जगत पसारा, एक राम घट घट का वासी, एक राम है सबसे न्यारा. All four are one single reality. So this is what he emphasizes. And then all the different forms of worship we have had of the Divine Mother as Durga, Kali, Maheshwari, Lakshmi, Mahalakshmi and Radha and all these. Then there is section 2 where the Mother, Sri Aurobindo and the Integral Yoga. What is their place and their role? And here a lot of people have a difficulty, and this difficulty has got reflected even in this volume. And I'll explain how. So Sri Aurobindo repeatedly says the mother and Sri Aurobindo are one. But for yogic purposes, you have to approach through the mother. This is the rule he himself made, and he gives reasons for it. But there were people who found it very difficult to accept the mother. For some reason, maybe the long stamp of Vedanta, ultimately Purusha. So Shakti is always subordinate. But now it is a time-changing moment. And the Shakti is in the forefront and people found it very difficult. So people continued to have doubts about the mother. There are letters where Sri Aurobindo has said that if you cannot have faith in the mother, it is better for you to go away. To that extent, because this was so important for the yoga. And yet in this very volume, that is a paradox. At the end there are notes. Editors give notes. Now these notes are meant to just say that, well, when were these letters written? For example, bulk of letters are 31 to 37. These notes are not supposed to be guides. They are just meant to give us the context, historical context of the letters. But in this note, we find a letter which has been put by the editors that Sri Aurobindo spoke about his letters in general, which is not at all in the context of the mother, but in context of another letter, which I am aware of, which I have mentioned in that what I write to X does not apply to Y. So therefore, one should not just keep applying A equal to B, which is okay as a general principle. But when you write it in the mother, followed by a small passing note, and that passing note is that therefore, all that he has written, there is a certain context to it. Now, when you write in a volume which is so important as the mother, which is the fundamental, if one has to pick up one volume, it is this. It makes it appear as if it is not so important. It is like any other volume of letters on yoga. But it is not like any other volume of letters on yoga, because the mother holds a central place in the yoga. In fact, Sri Aurobindo went on to say, and that letter is also here, when Nirodha asked him, what is the central secret of this sadhana? And he says, psychic opening to the mother. This is the central secret. So all other things have to be done, whether we do, but naturally not everything can be done. Personal effort demanded is not easy, but this one has to hold on to as the saving grace. So this is how. Then we have certain letters about their own yoga and how it has developed. And section 3 is the mother and the practice of the integral yoga, her place in the integral yoga, which is wonderful series of letters put together, her help in difficulties. And section 4 is the mother in the life of the ashram. And finally, we have, for instance, there were aspects of the ashram life where mother was physically involved, almost every aspect. So balcony darshan, pranam, soup, so many people took them as ceremonies. And they asked Sri Aurobindo, is it really necessary to come for pranam? I can do pranam inside. I am not feeling like coming for pranam. Is it not something mechanical? Should I do it? Should I not do it? All these letters clarify that. The value of darshan, darshan days. And then in section 5, there are commentaries, some commentaries or comments of Sri Aurobindo on the 3 works of the mother. One is prayers and meditation, which contains 24 letters, 24 prayers, which are partly or fully translated by Sri Aurobindo in English, because the original prayers are in French. And then on conversations with the mother, on some conversations he has given comment. And part 3 is translation, prayers of the mother. And then finally, it closes with a wonderful prayer, Radha's prayer. Now, Radha's prayer has a very interesting history. It went through modification. It was originally about a dance which Sahanadi was to perform, and she didn't know how to perform the dance. She was faltering, and she said, "Why am I not able to do this dance?" Whereas the dawn dance, which also she was practicing, said, "This is easy, but I am not able to do this dance." He said, "Because you have to put in yourself in the state, bhava in which Radha is." So then she writes in English, the mother writes in English, what is the state of Radha when she does this dance? Sri Aurobindo translates it into French and then back into English. So this is the birth of what we call today as the Radha's prayer. So we'll do it in 2 parts. Today we'll read just some passages from part 1, which is this small book, The Mother. So, just the first sentence of the first letter, which is chapter 1, if we want to call it, which gives the crux of the whole thing. There are 2 powers that alone, see, often with Sri Aurobindo's writings, one letter is so heavyweight that it gives the real sense of the whole thing. Now, imagine this sentence. Sri Aurobindo writing, there are 2 powers that can affect in their conjunction. But when he writes, there are 2 powers that alone, they are sufficient within themselves. And what are these 2 powers that alone can affect in their conjunction the great and difficult thing which is the aim of our endeavor, a fixed and unfailing aspiration that calls from below, and a supreme grace from above that answers. Call and the grace, everything hangs in between. And there is a letter of, series of letters of Sri Aurobindo to Nirodha. He says, really? That's it? He says, yes. All that you need to know is that there is a soul within and a grace above. He says, is it that simple? He said, yes. He said, you are talking as if it's a baby cat attitude. He said, yes. But how can it be? And Sri Aurobindo says, you must be wiser than Sri Ramakrishna and myself in that case. So there is a whole emphasis is on that yes, we have to call. Then the grace becomes effective. The patra is ready. Because the Divine Mother is there, she will do what she has to do. But if we do not welcome, as repeatedly Sri Aurobindo says, what is meant by really calling? Calling is not that inside I am doing some call. When we are calling somebody, what do? We are inviting. Imagine that we give a letter to Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. Please come tomorrow for lunch. And he says, yes. And what if he invite tomorrow and he says, I'll come tonight for dinner? Now imagine what should be the state of the house and the state of the people. That's all he is asking us to do. We are calling Sri Aurobindo and the Mother to inhabit this temple. They are there. They are there. In many ways they are there. But this is what is called as keeping the temple clean. So when I call them, who will be our guest list? Will I call some local big politician? This is important to emphasize. Who will say, I want the VIP seat? Will we ever do that when we are calling the Mother? He can come. Anybody can come. It is Shivji ki Bharat. They can sit on the floor in front of the Divine Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Isn't it? It's very simple. People often, when they read this first chapter, they say, oh my God, there is nothing. It's very simple. We have to just apply this same rule. If I am calling Sri Aurobindo, and if Sri Aurobindo and the Mother are in my house, how will I be? How will I behave? How will I keep that place? How will I do? What will be my thoughts, feeling? Because they can see everything. They are not going to, okay, you can think whatever you want to think. What kind of guest I will invite? Will I fill that atmosphere with smoke and drinks? Will I just call all kinds of people who are full of their vanity? Will I show them? There are people who come and say, I am this, I am that. Imagine, will we call such braggarts or become such a braggart ourselves? Mother, you know how much I have worked for you, as if she doesn't know. We will be in a state of humility, of surrender. What will we ask her? Will we ask them, give me this, give me that? Or we'll say, can you always stay here? Which is the most logical thing. I mean, this is what yoga is about. But if we read it not with the heart, with the mind, then we start analyzing. So people analyzed one of these sentences, but the supreme grace will act only in the conditions of the light and the truth. It will not act in conditions laid upon it by the falsehood and the ignorance. For if it were to yield to the demands of the falsehood, it would defeat its own purpose. And then Sri Aurobindo gives the conditions. Now people, when they read it, oh, conditions apply. So they get very frightened. But look at it this way. What really are the conditions? Mother was asked this. Fortunately, we have commentaries on this 6 letters in Conversations of the Mother, 1951 and 1954. All the 6 chapters. People ask some question. She says, what does condition mean? Condition mean that if I say, I will continue to drink, smoke, enjoy the life of the senses, I'll continue to steal and everything, but still you fulfill all that I ask. Isn't it foolish? I mean, it doesn't require. So we have to keep on doing our little effort, taking the Mother's help. We must at least want to get rid of the falsehood. He's not saying that entire falsehood must go away before she can come. He says, but these are the conditions we have to create within ourselves. And this takes time. So, why? Because it takes time, because it's a long process. So then, what should be, what is it that has to be done? What is the effort of this yoga? That becomes the chapter of, the content of chapter 2. All those who want to know what is the path of Sri Aurobindo's yoga, one single place. How many pages? Just 2.5 pages. 3 pages of this book, The Mother. Everything. Not one word extra needs to be known. And several places Sri Aurobindo says sadhana of this yoga is basically a psychological effort. And it's a triple effort. Several places Sri Aurobindo has said, the effort required for this yoga is not tanke sitting for meditation. Okay, one can do it if that is going to help us in this process. But it is a triple labor of aspiration, rejection, surrender. Now, rejection is another thing people find very difficult. But rejection is an inner renunciation of certain states of consciousness, attitudes, because if we don't renounce, how will we create space? Now, this is not expected that we'll do it in one go. But we have to start somewhere. And therefore, this list, for example, which he gives is very interesting. What is it that we have to reject? So people think it's only some outward activity, like we have to become vegetarians. If we become vegetarian, God will be very happy. If I stop smoking and drinking, of course we have to do those things. But what we have to reject is rejection of the movements of the lower nature, which means a rejection of the mind's ideas, opinions, preferences, habits, constructions, so that the true knowledge may find free room in a silent mind. Otherwise, when Sri Aurobindo comes, we will make him sit on a table and start a discussion and debate, wanting to draw him into some heated argument. See, that is the difference we see when mother came, she came with her husband. Her husband used to constantly have this discussion with Sri Aurobindo. No, this world is made by desire, and Sri Aurobindo would say it is delight. What happened to him? We all know. He finally went away for good. And he had a chapter of his life, that's a different story. And later on he relented. He said, the divine was there, right there, but my own ego and arrogance did not allow me to surrender. Look at the other contrast. The mother also came. She sat at the feet. She said, okay, what you say is true and right. That's what I must do. So she removed all the constructions, and she had already realized so much. And when she removed, there was a free room for the still greater, still vaster, the supramental wisdom to manifest. Rejection of vital nature's desires. Again, it's not so important, very relative important, whether we are vegetarian or non-vegetarian. What is important is the desire, the craving, attachment. I want only this kind of food. The people who become so fetish for organic, they almost become intolerant of anything other than that. That is what is bad. There should not be a craving. I want this particular kind of food. And not only with food, with everything. Desires, demands. If you give me this, therefore I will believe you are there. Cravings. When Sahanadi asked Sri Aurobindo, you know what, Lord, I am having craving for lobsters, fishes, all this. What does Sri Aurobindo write? He doesn't write, no, you should eat only vegetarian food. She says, I want to eat. I have a desire for eating these things. Sri Aurobindo's reply is, eat your desire. Just imagine. This is the profound spiritual statement coming from a height. He's not saying, no, you should switch to vegetarian or organic food. These are not good. He says, eat your desire, remove it from the root. Sensations, passions, selfishness, pride, arrogance, lust, greed, jealousy, envy, hostility to the truth. This, the Mother and Sri Aurobindo has said, is the most dangerous of all. So that the true power and joy may pour from above into a calm, large, strong and consecrated vital being. The sign that rejection is taking place correctly is in the vital. Vital conversion means pride, arrogance, seeking not only approval but flattery, feeling happy at praise. All this will go away. In fact, it will look very ugly because it is meaningless. Rejection of the physical nature, stupidity, doubt, disbelief, obscurity, obstinacy, pettiness, laziness. So in the physical also we have to do some effort. It is to get rid of laziness. If you want to do something, we must do it. And regardless, that is the best way to open the body to the divine forces. And it goes on, and finally surrender. And he says, this is something which grows. So in proportion as it grows, so will the yoga grow. And out of the three, he even says, what is the most important of these three? He says surrender. The only thing he says, it should not be a tamasic surrender. Tamasic surrender means I have surrendered myself to mother. I have to do nothing now. She will do everything. Obviously, that means that my nature will never be ready. Or it'll take aeons. She will make it ready. Aurobindo says that also in one of the letters. But it'll take a long time because then she has to work upon a nature which is completely unwilling. Then chapter 3, one of not only my favorite, I think many people's favorite, because any fear, any time, whether it's corona or super corona, just this chapter. And in this chapter, he speaks about to walk through life armored against all fear, peril and disaster. He is telling us the permanent cure of all fear, peril and disaster. What should we do? Which vaccine should we take? So he is asking us to be vaccinated against all fear, peril and disaster by the mother's name. So he says what is needed? Only two things are needed. Two that go always together. The grace of the Divine Mother, and on your side, again something is required on our side. Why? Because we have to be prepared to receive the grace. On your side, an inner state made up of faith, sincerity and surrender. So what if I don't have faith? Will the grace not come? No, it will come. But then first it has to tackle our doubt. Aurobindo was asked that does it mean that the medicine we gave, dravya, has no meaning? He says, no, it has its meaning. It is dravya guna. But if you use a wrong medicine, then the grace is to first negate its action, then act upon us. So if we are in that inner state of faith, well, the action of the grace can achieve the impossible. But if we are in a state of doubt, grace will not abandon us, but it has to first remove that tendency. So mother was asked that does the grace reject the sinners? She says no. There will be no hope for anyone. Grace doesn't see like that. She says, then what does it do when it's supposing there is a thief? She says, but obviously when the grace comes, it does not encourage that tendency. It will remove from him either through outer experiences or inner change, or through a little bit of both, the urge to steal. That's how the grace operates. So in this chapter, the more complete your faith, sincerity and surrender, these are the conditions, the more will grace and protection be with you. And when the grace and protection of the Divine Mother are with you, what is there that can touch you, or whom need you fear? A little of it even will carry you through all difficulties, obstacles and dangers, surrounded by its full presence. Aurobindo is not saying for this to come you have to, even little is enough. But if you have the full presence, you can go securely on your way because it is hers. Careless of all menace, unaffected by any hostility, however powerful, whether from this world or from worlds invisible. So all this talk about hostile forces, adverse forces, we must understand, has a limited place. But the important thing is the mother's name. Faith, sincerity and surrender. If this is there, no hostile adverse force can touch us, let alone harm us. And he closes so beautifully, its touch can turn difficulties into opportunities, failure into success, and weakness into unfaltering strength. For the grace of the Divine Mother is the sanction of the Supreme, and now or tomorrow its effect is sure, a thing decreed, a reverse inevitable and irresistible. Only we have to allow time, because now or tomorrow, but its effect is bound to take place. Chapter 4, again as I said, written to Punam Chand, so relevant and so refreshingly unique in today's age, when money is the Lord. What is Aurobindo's attitude towards money? Neither an ascetic rejection and shrinking from it, nor an indulgent attitude. But like everything else, money is a power which should be at the service of the divine. And when we speak about money, we think of currency. But now we all know it's not currency. Currency is a symbol. Tomorrow you won't have paper notes, but only digital. So what does it mean? It means that there is something which we have given to the world in lieu of which from the world, certain kind of force has been allowed to us. What is the purpose of this force? I can purchase material things. That's all. It doesn't matter whether we call it rupee, dollar, or any other thing. Based on our efforts, certain amount of wealth has come. And this wealth can take any form. Now, this wealth I can use for my ego satisfactions, for the selfish expansion, or I can use this wealth at the divine service. So the sadhak has to use it for the divine service. Punam Chand was given one of the tasks of asking money. He used to ask money for, the work here, and he used to feel, how can I ask money? So Sri Aurobindo gives him the right attitude. That when you are asking for money, what is it that you are asking? You are giving an opportunity for the other person to participate in the divine yajna. Not everybody can do sadhana, yoga. Not everybody can practice all these things. There are people who have wealth. Even if they give something of that wealth, they become part of the yajna. So it is actually for their benefit. Sri Aurobindo was not that it will depend upon them. Neither the attitude of, oh sir, please can you part, nor the attitude of the arrogant person. But simply you are giving him an opportunity. If he gives, it is good for him. And if he doesn't give, well, divine has his own ways and means. So this is about the money force. He speaks of money, how it has been under the influence of the sadhaka. In India, this tendency to shun money has not been very good. It is the stamp of ascetic tendency. And we think somebody having money is not a sadhak or a yogi. Indulging with money, attachment to money, greed for money, ambition for money, that is not good. But money will come, use it rightly, wisely, divinely. 5th chapter is an entire fundamental basis of karma yoga, but not just the ordinary karma yoga, but the supramental karma yoga. So if one wants to understand what karma yoga is, and because Sri Aurobindo's yoga is a karma pradhan yoga, everything else you can avoid in this yoga, but not karma. Sri Aurobindo and the mother have insisted on service. So what should be the attitude of the doer of the divine work? And he starts from this: if you want to be a true doer of divine works, your first aim must be to be totally free from all desire and self-regarding ego. So divine work cannot be done if we think I am doing divine work. Self-regarding ego. Or I am important for the work. If I am not there, the work will suffer. All these thoughts are contrary to divine work. Or if I am doing the work with the idea of gaining respect or a position, all these are play of the ego. Starting point itself is very high. So we see these two things even in the Gita. But then Sri Aurobindo, after starting from here is the starting point. It goes on, and until he says that the condition should be that one is entirely and freely moved by the Divine Mother without anything obstructing or creating an obstacle in our working. To become a pure and perfect channel of the Divine Mother. This is not in the Gita. The Gita is you are still acting through the 3 gunas, but you are inwardly free, and the Divine takes care of your soul, your being. But here one has to become a channel of the Divine Mother and a Shakti, her light, her peace, her power, her Ananda to pour upon the world. And finally comes, as I said, this an independent letter, not a letter actually. It was written as a separate booklet to come, but was integrated with the other 5 letters. The first is a message, the 4 letters, so total 5 chapters, and therefore the book, The Mother, was completed. And this is about the 4 powers of the Divine Mother and who the Mother is. Now here there is the ultimate revelation. It's like the spiritual biography of the Divine Mother. Who is she? She is the transcendent, supreme Mahashakti. Om Anandamayi, Chaitanyamayi, Satyamaya Parame. She has become she is also the Jagan Mata, the Vishwa Mata, the World Mother. But holding both these aspects, she has also become the individual mother who is seated in the heart of all creatures. And she has taken a human form as the avatar to help humanity connect with these two vaster ways of our existence. And therefore, he cautions us, do not try to judge her by your limited mind, because she is beyond even the gods. So, Isha Upanishad says this about the Supreme, that the gods cannot catch him, because he is always in front, faster than the gods. So, if it is true of the Supreme, we can imagine the dynamic Divine Mother. She is creating all things, and we cannot see. She is doing an action hundreds of years in advance. Therefore, I may not be able to understand what is happening to me today or in the world. But much later, the result is understood. Imagine when the Britishers came to India. Now, people must have felt so disheartened that ये मुगलों से तो छुटकारा मिला नहीं था. They were weakening and they were weakened. Oh, Shivaji almost conquered. Guru Gobind Singh almost conquered. And now the Britishers have come. But imagine if India would have lived with the chap of the Mughals. With all whatever goodness there may or may not be, it is very retrogressive. At least the British brought in something which was going to be more connected with the modern way of looking at life, scientific way of looking at life. Otherwise, we would have continued to believe that the earth is flat and it does not rotate. So at least they brought in this kind. And then when their task was done, when they started overdoing what they were meant to do in the secret providence of thing, when the Indian heart and mind finally revolted, was ready for the revolt to overthrow, when it was ready to wake up from the tamas, then we see that Swami Vivekananda, Aurobindo, and then they wake up this sleeping lion and then, or lions, and then we see that India gains freedom. So this is how we have to see. And when did this happen? She has seen 200 years, 500 years in advance. So similarly, for example, in one of our conversations, he says, still Indians are not responding. She says, that would mean another domination. It is there in one of our conversations. Then she says, Chinese should never come. It is very dangerous. And she sees that they are planning to come. Then she says, America or Russians. Then she says, if Russians come, they will gain nothing much because they are already mystics at heart. If Americans come, they will benefit from India and India will benefit from them. But it will be too much of humiliation for 200 years. And she says, no, this must not happen. So you see, the divine is not seeing like us. Can we ever imagine 200 years we'll say, I am going to die, I don't even know how my children are going to do things. So therefore, Aurobindo cautions us, after revealing all about the Mahashakti, all the planes, and of course this is a marvel of a book, this we'll do separately, 4 aspects of the Divine Mother. She says, Aurobindo reveals to us how we should open to her. Yes. It's the longest chapter. As I said, this was written primarily as a book. First he says, if you desire this transformation, put yourself in the hands of the mother. That's it. And her powers without cavil or resistance, and let her do unhindered her work within you. That's the secret of transformation. 3 things you must have. Consciousness. If we remain unconscious, mother is doing something, but I don't develop the consciousness to at least glimpse something of her workings. Plasticity. We should not fix, this is how she must work. If she is not working this way, we start saying, where is mother? On the contrary, we should say, I don't understand you, Ma, but I trust you. So consciousness, plasticity, and surrender. They all go together. But be on your guard. Next passage. But be on your guard and do not try to understand and judge the Divine Mother by your little earthly mind that loves to subject even the things that are beyond it to its own norms and standards. Its narrow reasonings. Our narrow reasoning is 1 plus 1 equals to 2. And the Divine Mother's reasoning is 1 plus 1 equal to 1. So that one of us, that is little one, the ego one is lost. But we want 1 plus 1 equal to 2. My ego plus the divine. But see, divine logic. So you'll say, okay, 1 plus 1 plus 1. That also will be 1. You multiply any number. So that divine logic. It doesn't act according to human reasonings. So he says, our crude surface notions of omniscience and omnipotence. I called the mother, she should have cured me immediately. Or cured X, Y, Z. Some people turn the divine into a wish-fulfilling machine. And I think today itself somebody was circulating on WhatsApp something very nice and so appropriate. That, if we keep asking the divine that, you must help me in my business should flourish, my child should get admission in so and so, the sick in my family should be relieved. He says, this is foolish to imagine. People ask this question that because somebody is good, then therefore everything good must happen to that person. And the mother says, in a world of ignorance, this is impossible. That way, nothing even should be needed to ask. The fact is that this world is a world of ignorance. And it has to be transformed into a world of wisdom and love. And the mother is working towards that. But she needs our collaboration. It is not magic that happens. Or magic that happens in some people's life have gone through the steps of the process. For our mind clamors to be impressed at every turn by miraculous power and easy success and dazzling splendor. Otherwise, it cannot believe that here is the divine. So this idea, crude, vulgar surface notions of the divine. Divine is like the genie in the bottle. This we should not have. He is not only omnipotent, she is also omniscient. And above all, she is love. So she knows what is good for us, what is needed for us. All who have walked the path understand this much later. During that time, when one is going through and she is working to remove many things, they don't understand. But once they cross a certain critical barrier of the ego, if I may say so, they look back and say, she was carrying me, I didn't know. So he is asking us to be patient, and this is a long work, a difficult work, yet it is a work which is decreed. So with this last passage we will stop. The supramental change is a thing decreed and inevitable in the evolution of the earth consciousness. It's very clear, it's logical. Evolution cannot stop with man. If divine is in matter, ultimately matter will release the divine. Along with him, like Krishna's story of the two trees changing into gods, this matter will be divinized. For its upward ascent is not ended, and mind is not its last summit. If mind had created world, then yes, mind is the summit. But divine has created this world, and right now it is going through the transition phase. But that the change may arrive, take form and endure, there is needed. Once again he brings us back to the original truth. There is needed the call from below with a will to recognize and not deny the light when it comes. And there is needed the sanction of the Supreme from above. So again, after the entire reading, we come back to call and the grace. Because it's the grace that gets the sanction. Our efforts cannot get the sanction, but grace adds, it's okay, I know, this man is trying. He's trying, he's sincere. So the sanction comes from above. The power that mediates between the sanction and the call is the presence and power of the Divine Mother. And finally, this last sentence, does it sound like a relative contextual reading which may apply to some and may not apply to others? As we see at the end of the book in editor's note, see what Sri Aurobindo writes. Look at the power, the majesty. This entire book is full of tremendous power. But look at this last sentence. Does it ever sound contextual? For some people it will apply, for others it won't apply. Look at this. The mother's power And not any human endeavor in tapasya. He is qualifying it. And not any human endeavor in tapasya can alone rend the lid. Again, look at the word. Initially also is used the word alone. Can alone. Means there is no other way. Can alone rend the lid and tear the covering and shape the vessel. All these. First she will rend the lid of ignorance. Tear the covering which conceals the divine. And then this human vessel, she will shape the vessel and bring down into this world of obscurity and falsehood and death and suffering truth and light and life divine and the immortals Ananda. This entire book has been read by the mother and it is available. There is a record available. All the 6 chapters have been read by the mother and it's amazing. So, if one has to pick up one book and read this small book, people say Sri Aurobindo has written big things, philosophical things. And this book is both at once metaphysics and the yoga practice. The Mother. Namaste.